All right, we're going to open our agenda for the Architectural Board Review, September 7th, 2021. Start with our roll call, please.
All right, thank you, board members. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call, and I'll start with Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black is absent. Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Olsen,
Here.
and Board Member Whalen.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will move to general business and public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject under our jurisdiction. And you can follow the instructions on screen to raise your hand and let us know that you'd like to make a comment. Do we have anybody that would like to make a comment? I'm sorry, Ms.
Christina.
McGuire, we can't hear you. Okay, it sounds like Ms. McGuire is having some audio difficulties. Mr. Russell, are you able to step in at all? I'm not sure how that process works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to wait until she comes back because I don't know if they have received any written public comment. Let's just wait until she's in attendance.
Chair Moore, I think that our secretary, Mary, would know if we had any written.
Sure.
Thank you, board members. So for written public comment, I just received a letter from Mary Brooks. However, it wasn't received in time for the cutoff, so it'll have to be distributed to the board after the meeting. But no additional written correspondence was received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait a little bit longer to see if,
Mr. Chair, can we just, we can do public comment. It doesn't look like anyone from the general attendees list is raising their hand wishing to speak on today's item. But before we proceed, I kind of want to make sure that Christina's mic is working. So maybe we just take a couple-minute recess while she figures that out.
sounds good. Let's adjourn for a few minutes or until she arrives with audio.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Reopen the meeting.
Yes, Chair Moore.
Right, so we are reopening the meeting and starting with general business and public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. And you can follow the instructions that will be on your screen to raise your hand and let staff know you would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. At this time, I don't see that anybody has joined the webinar to make any public comment on any general public correspondence. Mary, did we receive any written general public correspondence?
Thank you, Christina and board members. We did receive a letter from Mary Brooks, but it wasn't received in time for the cutoff deadline. So I will be distributing it to the board after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will close public comment and go on to approval of the minutes for August 23rd.
So moved?
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Six. Somebody like to second that?
Second that.
Second by Board Member Noon. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black, or Board Member Black is absent, Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olsen,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the consent calendar for August 30th, please.
Move we accept as prepared.
We could just have those up briefly so we could take a quick look. Mhm. Right. Okay, so we had a first by Mr. Olson, and I'll second that. And if we have any discussion? No? Okay, let's vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olsen,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, then for, minutes from today's consent calendar, if we could read those before we make our motions. Okay. So I guess I'll read these out since that's typically what happens, and I think Ms. McGuire is unable to right now, unless that's correct. So item A was 525 East Mitchell Traina Street, and the board provided project design approval and final approval with comments that no visual impact finding was found and the compatibility analysis findings have been met. And a 10-day appeal period was announced. And then, was there a second item? Yes, 525 East Yananali was continued indefinitely to the consent agenda with comments that motion comments number 3, 4, and 5 from the previous meeting still need to be resolved. And number 2, motion comments number 1, number 2, and number 6 from the previous meeting have been resolved by the applicant.
I move we accept as prepared.
Okay,
Second?
seconded by by Vice Chair Six, and we
I
can
have
take.
discussion. I would like,
Please.
so Mr. Noon and I were on consent today. We had some trouble understanding some of the comments from a previous meeting. And I'm not sure, we don't know who were on that consent at that time. But we sent this project back because we felt like the applicant had not fulfilled these items 3, 4, and 5, but we were somewhat concerned because it was hard for us to understand what the comments were intended to mean. And so we couldn't really determine some of these things. So I mention that only to say that it's really important for us, and I don't sometimes do this myself, but I'll try to do it more consistently, and that is to carefully review what the comments and the motion is for clarity for previous times of reviewing the documents.
Okay.
If you have anything to say, add to that, Mr. Noon?
I don't. I mean, I don't know procedurally moving forward if we can get the applicant to address these in their presentation, specifically that, you know, that may have helped. I think it was the difficulty was to understand what the previous comment, you know, the intent was, but then it was obvious that the information wasn't on the drawing, and that's why we couldn't proceed with it.
It was complicated further, but the applicant didn't know what a section was.
Oh,
Okay, so yeah, that's difficult. So I guess we just need to be very, because you are correct, the consent calendar, you know, has a rotating review body. It is critical to try and be as clear as possible with our comments moving forwards. Sometimes staff is able to help out. I don't know when the last time this was, October of 2020, so some time ago, which is part of the issue as well. Okay, anything else?
Nothing else here?
Okay.
I think-
Well, let's take our vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olsen,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe we still have a few general business points to get through, sorry. Any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, any future agenda items or appeals, please?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'm wondering if you can hear me.
You can, you're a
Yes.
little faint, but.
Okay, Board Member Black will not, is having technical difficulties, much like myself, and will not be in may be in attendance at the meeting in about 20 minutes or so.
Okay. Anything else from anybody at this time?
Yes, I have one thing. I downloaded the new Zoom agenda, I guess it is, and it allows me to take a screenshot of the screen. Perhaps that's been there before, but it's very helpful to do to try to remember something that's been on the screen and come back to it, because it downloads it to the desktop. And it also, you can enlarge what's on the screen by pinching it or reducing it or pinching it, both of which are helpful to me. And as far as I know, that hasn't been something I could do before with the screen.
Okay. Good tips. All right, well, if that is it for announcements, I don't imagine there's been any subcommittee activity at this time. No? Okay. Well, then we can move on to our first item, I believe, which is item number 1, 831 Cliff Drive, and this is a new item. Looking for a project design approval, and it's a proposal to demolish the existing hip roofs and replace with gently sloped shed roofs and install solar panels on the roofs at an existing multi-unit housing development. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with project compatibility findings. Okay, Ms. McGuire, you have something to add?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'm going to take my camera down so that it looks a little better and I can talk into my phone. I did have a few comments on this project. Just wanted to clarify that the board's purview does not include the actual solar panels themselves. That's regulated by the state and not a discretionary approval, but the roofs and the other details are under the ABR's purview, obviously. And also there is a requirement on this due to a CUP from the 1980 that gutters would be required for this project. So this project is agendized only for project design approval. They would not be able to get final approval should the design meet the ABR's guide standards. They also need more details, which we've already notified the applicant about.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant is with us, we can get started. Welcome, and if you could introduce yourself and take us through the proposal.
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. My name is Noah Greer. I'm the architect, and I'll be presenting the project to you. I'd like to start with the site photos, if we can, staff. Thank you. So the site is at the corner of Olive and Cliff, directly across Cliff from City College. The site's currently developed with 97 apartments and some sort of common use areas sprinkled about. The majority of the residents, but not all, are students. And this proposal involves the three buildings at the south end of the site. The proposal is to reconstruct the existing hipped roofs as 1.5 and 12 single slope roofs to accommodate new photovoltaic systems on each building. The idea there, of course, is that PV can substantially offset the substantial energy use at the site. There are also a few cosmetic upgrades to complement the new roofs, including metal balcony railings to replace the existing wood railings. Of course, I'll show you all this. That would match some of the remodeling that's already been done on the site. New aluminum frame windows to replace the existing. Those would also match the existing windows on site. And then larger windows to replace some of the existing windows, and I'll show you those on the elevations when we get there. So this photo is unit 807, brick red unit. This is a 2-story unit with a basement garage below. So as you'll see on the south elevation, it appears to be a 3-story building. And here you can see the existing hipped roofs. They're consistent across all the buildings, and the existing chimneys that are also consistent. Next photo, please. Also consistent across all 3 units is the sloped site. It slopes down from the north end down to the south end. And here you can see the basement level garage and then the 2 stories above. And these are the south facing balconies where we're proposing a couple cosmetic upgrades. Thank you. Next photo. Those upgrades include these wood and metal railings to be replaced with new metal railings that would match the existing on the other 3 buildings on site. And then the wing walls that you see they're stuccoed on the left and right side of each balcony would extend up in the same place vertically to match the dividing wall that you see separating the 2 balconies. Thank you. Next photo. And the mustard yellow unit is unit 805. This is another 2-story with a basement level garage. Thank you. Next photo. And the new roof, of course, is to replace this existing, or the new project is replacing this existing hip roof with a new single slope roof. We're looking at the south side, the low side of that sloped roof. We would maintain the existing plate height for that new roof, which is an 8-foot plate on the apartment levels. And I will refer to in the plans later this elevation for as exemplary of the window changes we're proposing and the balcony changes we're proposing. Thank you. Next photo. Finally, this is unit number 803, the blue one story in this case with the garage below. Next photo, please. And here, the north side of unit 803. Next photo, please. We're able to get a nice shot of the hip roof on unit 803 here. This is consistent across all the units, as are the existing chimneys. Thank you. Next photo. I'll show a few north elevation photos here. Unit 805. This is the unit that I'll be referring to as exemplary of all the units when we get to the plan set shortly. We're proposing minor trim and window changes. Thank you. Next image. And lastly, this is 807, a different color scheme, but very similar north elevation to 805. Thank you. Can we flip to sheet A 1.1 in the plan set? Just a reminder of the site plan, we're looking at the 3 units at the southeast portion of the lot. And I'll be using unit 805, which is the middle unit, as exemplary of all the units as I'm going through this. Thank you. Can we go to AB 2.1, floor plans? And this is AB, please, AB 2.1. Thank you very much. There really are no interior changes proposed to the units, but these plans, and we can zoom into, let's say, the second floor plan proposed, which is view 5 on this sheet, show the changes proposed at the balconies, and those are labeled on the right side of view 5. New doors and windows, typical. Those are within the existing openings. And then the new wing walls. And I mentioned that when we were looking at the photos on either side of the balconies, we'll simply extend them vertically, which is the same remodeling that was done to all the other 3 existing buildings. Okay, thank you. Let's flip to AB 4.1, the roof plan. On the roof plan, we're simply showing the existing hip roof to be replaced. And then this is the other unit, but it's fine. It's essentially the same. You can see we are proposing a substantial inset on all the units for the photovoltaics, for the panels themselves, I should say. Thank you. AB 5.1. Okay, again, this is the other unit, but that's perfectly fine. Let's zoom in on view 3, please. Or 3 and 1, if we can keep those in the same view. Okay, on the bottom, of course, you see the existing hipped roof, and at the top, the new single sloped roof at 1.5 and 12. Again, we're maintaining that 8-foot plate where it's structurally bearing on the south side, and then we are lifting the roof as needed on the north side. Thank you. AB 6.1, the elevations, please. I'd like to, and in this case, let's go to AB 6.1 instead of AC 6.1, please. Thank you. Comparing view 1 to view 5. So this is the south elevation existing on the right, of course, the hip roof to be replaced. But mostly I wanted to focus on the balcony and the window changes. On the left, you can see a slightly different proportion on the windows and a different style on the windows. That is to match what has been done consistently on the other 3 units on the site. Same with the balcony updates. Okay, now comparing views 3 and 2 to 6 and 7. 3 and 2, the existing side elevations, and then 6 and 7, the proposed side elevations where you can see the new single slope roof, generally following the natural slope of the site. Our proposed max height is slightly below the existing max height of the roof. And then in these side elevations, you can also see a few quite minor window changes, but again, just replacing the windows to be consistent with what is existing. Then wrapping up, if we can look at A9.1, the details sheet, which is earlier in the set. Great, thank you. If we could zoom in on those, of course, we're still developing the details at this point, but the replacement windows, again, are a simple, clear anodized aluminum frame window to match what's been done elsewhere on the site. And then at the bottom, the proposed 36-inch overhang, which is occasionally maybe 60 inches where the building is inset below, has a simple vented stucco finish below to match what is existing consistently on the site. And here we're showing a gutter profile as well. Thank you very much. Again, the same changes are proposed on all 3 units, and I look forward to hearing your board's input, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So we will now open public comment. Anybody in the public would like to make a comment regarding this project, you can follow the instructions on screen, and that will notify the staff that you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, nobody has joined the webinar to speak on this item. Mary, have you received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina, and board members, no public comment was received for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to questions, the project description, if we go back to that, is specific to the roof and installation of solar panels. And I don't, you know, typically there's a little bit more description about the rest of the proposals and, you know, replacement of windows, you know, exterior changes, etc. Can staff weigh in on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. That is correct. The project description is, I'm not sure, and I apologize, it's not encompassing all of the things on their project plans, like the windows and the I think it was also the balconies. So the extent of today's review should just be on the roofs and the things that are related to the roofs and solar panels.
Okay. So unfortunately, we need to, just the way the public notification works, the project description in front of us is what went out to the public. So this is what they're expecting to be seen today. So unfortunately, we need to keep our comments to the roof form at this point, unfortunately. So if...
Chair Moore?
Yes, go ahead.
May we ask questions? I know that our final motion will only be about the roof, but can we make other comments or have questions that would guide the applicant for future reviews?
I will defer to Ms. McGuire for that answer.
Actually, thank you, Chair Moore. I'm not 100% confident on that answer. I'm wondering if Ms. Unzueta might be able to weigh in on that. I know she has joined the webinar and usually keeps an eye on things.
There she is.
Good afternoon, board members. And Vice Chair Six, could you repeat the question? Was your question whether you could make comments on?
I know that we can't formalize any comments on anything other than the roof, but can we involve questions and non-recorded, comments that would not be involved in the motion to give the applicant some heads up on his next review?
Yes, I think that would be acceptable or appropriate to do. You would, if you do take action today, to give the roofs and the, well, what the agenda is indicating, a PDA today, then obviously it would be just for those elements of the project. You could make comments on other elements that would come back to you for review.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so questions. Who would like to start? Any questions? No questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll ask.
Go ahead.
Number one, it's appear, and I just want to confirm that the single pitched roof as opposed to the existing hip roofs on the that were on the on the previous project are because of the efficiencies of the layout of the solar panels. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Board Member Six. It's advantageous that each of these buildings would then have a south or southwesterly exposure to the new roof.
And the roof material is a white PVC as the existing.
I'll be honest, at this point, the roofing is TBD, the material itself.
Okay. There is on the existing buildings, there is a very forgiving and significant overhang. Are you maintaining that same overhang? I think you say 3 feet. Is the existing one 3 feet? And
thank you, Board Member Six. In most cases, I believe so. It's something we will certainly confirm.
all right, and then I noticed that there on the existing building, there was a lot of sensitivity to metal awnings, some horizontal metal siding and trim, but I see none here. Well, is there no anticipation of providing some of those features as the first phase?
At this time, no. It is something we explored doing, but it was we opted to keep the remodel as simple as possible.
Okay. And then I noticed that there are significant chimneys, as you see on the, those go away?
Yes, those are deleted, and I'm told that those the original fireplaces have not been functional for a very long time.
All right. And last, are these colors, are they going to remain? I think there's a different sensibility color scheme of the previous plan and the previous and this. Are the colors to remain?
We're proposing no change to the colors at this time.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, as to follow up on Mr. Six's question about color, are we to assume that the colors have been approved by previous ABR meetings?
Board Member Olsen, it's my understanding that there were lengthy discussions and approval process that was associated with these colors. And as far as I am aware, these are all the approved colors.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Whalen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Greer, what is the original construction date of these buildings? And secondly, have there been significant alterations to these three buildings, to your knowledge, over the years?
Board Member Whalen, I will get back to you very shortly with the original construction date. But the short answer to your second question is no, there have not been substantial revisions to the buildings since then.
Okay, anything else?
I'm sorry, one more question, Chair Moore. That there's no intention of changing out the garage doors?
Board Member 6, there's no intention to change the garage doors as part of this proposal, no.
Anyone else? If we could we flip through the photos again really quickly? Please. Is there, this is a question for Mr. Greer, is there any occasion that these roofs are visible from the surrounding streets?
Chair Moore, I walked the site, and from the sidewalks, I would say there are peekaboo views where the roofs themselves would be visible. The blue unit at the southernmost end is probably visible when walking the sidewalk along Cliff, although you're looking sort of up at the building at that point. This is useful, thank you. Yes, so at the far south end where there's a driveway entrance. Now the site itself is quite a bit higher than the sidewalk surrounding. However, I believe at that point I'm so sorry, I'm saying Cliff and I mean Loma Alta. Walking up Loma Alta where the driveway entrance is at the southern end of the site, I believe you might have a view up at that side of 803, and I believe that it may be visible from City College campus. You'll also get peekaboo roofs of various roofs because you're so much higher than Loma Alta Drive at that point. And I'd like to answer Board Member Whalen's question. The original construction date, at least according to one of the archived plans, is 1980.
Okay. Does your photo exhibit include any photos from Loma Alta or Cliff Drive?
It does not, but we certainly can provide them.
Okay, those are my questions. Anyone else with last questions or follow-ups?
I had a quick question. Sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Noon, go ahead.
Just a quick question about downspouts. I assume that'll mean a relocation and or addition of downspouts.
That is correct, Board Member Noon. And at this point, we haven't located, the new downspouts. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, since we're asking for other pictures, what about pictures from the City College campus looking back down on it?
Okay.
Thank you. We will provide those.
All right, if that's all of our questions, we can move to comments, please. Who would like to start? Mr. Whalen, go ahead.
I'll go first, since I'm sort of two minds about this. On one hand, I'm wondering if the architectural imagery isn't going a bit backwards. However, it is, as far as I can tell, not visible, clearly visible from major public areas. However, it does seem like there's something kind of awkward that I can't quite put my finger upon about the resulting images where the hip roof has been replaced with a single shed roof. It seems much less interesting than the existing. However, as I say, I'm of two minds about this. I don't think it'll have a giant visual impact. However, on the question of additional photos, it would be nice to see it from both sides. One, the what is that? The turnaround over at City College near McDougal Administration Center, and from the other side, from the Interdisciplinary Center, which, if there is any view of it, would be the most impact. Thank you, Chair Moore.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
I just thought of a question. Is it okay to ask the applicant something?
Okay.
It just came up, I swear. Did they look at putting solar panels on all the buildings instead of changing the roofs on 3 of them?
Board Member Anderson, there are solar panels either installed or planned for all of the buildings on the site.
Okay. Okay, that was my question. But as for my comments, I agree with Mr. Whalen, that you can't really see it, and I don't see any adverse effects other than the architecture loses some detailing that I think maybe the applicant can explore further in the next review.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, more?
Yes, go ahead.
I think that Board Member Whalen is kind of hit or resonates with my feeling that it's going backwards a little. But I think that, and I put to the subtleties and the attempts at kind of the modern look of the first phase, I think especially, and maybe not, maybe just at the elevations where the wall is significantly higher than it used to be. I think there needs to be some kind of trim or some kind of material change that takes it all the way up, instead of just leaving this super tall header before we hit the inside of the eave. So I think that because of I'm not adverse to as it was mentioned, the kind of the peekaboo of these and very street, but that this pitched roof needs some articulation of windows and headers and materials to make sense of. That's
all right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Olsen.
I'd like to make sure that our action doesn't authorize the colors here. So I'd like to have the staff verify what the applicant has said about the previous ABR decision about colors.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Noon, any comments?
Yeah, just my only comment is, I did a quick drive-by, if you will, via Google Maps and agree with the applicant's comments that it's hardly visible from any public, from the street. Maybe one direction coming up the drive to the north. It would be nice to see other views from around the campus. So it sounds like that's what the other board members desire. So I don't see this. I don't have anything against or any reason to not approve of the redesign.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of in the same boat as Mr. Noon. Initially when I saw particularly the north elevation with kind of the awkward nature of the extended wall with no real detail or variety or addition of windows or anything like that, which would make sense at those locations. I was initially taken aback, but then, looking a little bit more at the site, it doesn't appear to be that visible. And if this change is going to allow for greater solar output, then I think that's a good thing. So in general, I don't mind the shed roof because it doesn't appear to be visible from the public way. It may end up being visible from City College, but I'm not sure that that's quite as important in this case. I think for the next review, it's the other detailing, for instance, the balcony railings and the other portions that are being modified seem to be okay for the same reason, because they're just not visible outside of the development. So that's sort of an unofficial comment in my feeling. So
I would join that boat with you and Mr. Noon.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
unofficially, I would not support this simple pitched roof without, as I said, some articulation that makes sense out of the higher plate heights and so forth, and makes sense of that particular of a more modern architecture.
Mm-hmm. One other thought I had when I was looking at that large wall was, they could pursue a kind of an offset scissor truss kind of a thing where they could have a ridge, and that would allow the north elevation to be less tall, potentially, if they had a lower plate at that point. So,
well, if I'm further discussion, I don't have a problem with the dimension or the extra height. I just have a problem with the unresolved placement of windows that used to be on a consistently flat plate heights, and I've expressed that.
Yep. Yeah, I agreed. I think there's something to study there to make it better. Would you like to make a motion out of that, Vice Chair Six?
Well, I think we're only, well, okay. I think that the motion would be for an indefinite continuance back to the full board with the comment that further documentation of views from Alta Vista, and portions of the campus that might be affected by the mass change of the project could be documented. The number 2, the pitched roof, single pitch roof appears could be acceptable if further development of the affected elevations have trim, organization of materials, etc., to coordinate with the new roof form. And I think we have to leave it with that.
Second the motion.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Olson. Any discussion? Ms. Anderson?
Would you want to add locating downspouts in that, or?
Yeah. I think third comment would be to verify the redistribution, the affected redistribution of the downspouts that would affect the water management on the site.
Do you think it's necessary to add the confirmation of for staff confirmation of the colors from previous ABR meetings?
We can add that.
Okay. Well, let's read that motion back. We could, please.
These are changes that are okay with a second?
Okay.
Before I read it back, Mr. Board Member Olson, could you please repeat that last comment?
I would like to ask the staff to confirm the color choices and decisions made by previous meetings of the ABR.
All right, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and read it back. So the motion is to continue the project indefinitely back to the full board with the following comments. Number 1, provide further documentation of the views from Alta Vista and portions of the SBCC campus that might be affected by the big change of the project, the mass change of the project. Number 2, the single pitched roof could be acceptable with further development of the elevations with trim or materials, etc., that coordinate with the new roof form. Verify the effective redistribution of downspouts that would affect the water management on site. And number 3, confirm with staff the color choices and decision made by the previous meetings of the ABR.
Okay.
That's good.
What was number 2 again? That sounded a little off.
Sure. The single pitched roof could be acceptable with further development of the elevations with trim or materials to be coordinated with the new roof form.
Okay.
Verify
That's fine. Okay.
the effective redistribution of downspouts that would affect water management on site.
Okay. Does that sound right to the motion maker?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Let's take our vote, please.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sick,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Wayland.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we can move on to item number 2, I believe. How are we doing on time? So item 2 is due at 3:45, so we're good to go. So this is 1812 San Pasquale Street, and this is a continued item, and it's an in-progress review. And this is a proposal for 4 new residential units on a site developed with a duplex using the city's average unit density program. The project entails retaining the existing 1-story duplex and constructing a new 2-story structure containing 4 2-bedroom units. Unit sizes range from 947 to 1,040 square feet with an average unit size of 985 square feet. Proposed density on this 11,580 square foot lot is 23 dwelling units per acre on a site with a general plan land use designation of medium high density residential, which allows for 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. 4 new parking spaces are proposed as part of this project. This is an in-progress review, and this was last seen on May 17th of 2021. Project design approval was granted. Okay. We have our applicant with us. Welcome back, Mr. Greer.
Thank you very much.
Take us through what you've been up to.
Will do. Noah Greer, project architect. We're now developing the construction details for the building permit submittal and wanted to check in with your board to ensure we still have your support. There have been some changes, which I will detail, primarily driven by the high cost of construction and materials at the moment and an effort to simplify some complicated structural solutions. In this case, we were able to make most of those changes without any significant change to the design and with no real proposed changes to the details that we had all discussed previously. So I'd like to start, if we can, with A1.2, the site plan, please. The most significant changes shown in the site plan, and let's go to the next sheet, please, with the proposed site plan. So again, the project is a 4-unit project at the rear of the site, behind an existing duplex you see on the left. So at the right, the sort of organization of the building, at the rear of that building, at plan bottom, at plan south, is around a sort of central courtyard that provides space for the private open yards, the 4 units. This footprint has changed slightly at the front and the rear. At the front, we widened the gable front entries slightly to help with the proportions per a board comment. We'll look at that in elevation. The footprint change at the rear involves an enlargement of the private open yards for the 2 central units because we pushed in those first floor walls slightly. Before that, the sort of south wall at the middle of the courtyard was a straight wall, and it has been pushed in and stepped, pushed in 18 inches or 30 inches where it's been pushed in the most from where it previously was. It does now stack from the first to the second floor. Before there was a slight sort of wedding cake at that moment. Also in this plan, and we'll look at it elsewhere, we deleted the cantilever that we had on the left and right walls that frame that courtyard. So we'll see those in plans and in elevations. Thank you. If we can go to A2.0, the first floor plan. Interior revisions are primarily for units D and E, which are those middle 2 units. The kitchen location has shifted from plan south to plan north, and we shifted the locations of the first floor half baths. The general organization of the unit otherwise is unchanged. We did relocate the rear door and window locations, so we'll look at those in elevations as well. Again, you can see here the wider private open yard immediately behind units D and E, those 2 middle units. That resulted from us pushing in that first floor wall. We've also slightly shifted the heat pump locations, although we'll be coming back to your board later with the landscape plan that's completely updated. So I don't know that we'd need to get too deeply into that now. And then also in this plan, previously there would have been a dashed line indicating the cantilever of the units above on the left and the right sides of that courtyard. When we'll see that more so in elevation. Thank you. Can we look at A2.1, the second floor plan? All right, at units D and E, we've reduced costs by deleting an additional bathroom that we had at each of those units on the second floor. We've also deleted the front decks that we had at Plan Northeast and Plan Northwest here. They were uncovered balconies, and now they have been deleted. The south elevation walls, I should say the south elevation walls, middle of the courtyard, units D and E, those now stack. And you're seeing here what we'll see in elevation, which is we maintained a roof line to help break up that southern elevation in the middle there. Thank you. Can we look at A2.7, the roof plan? The roof plan is generally unchanged. The most significant change is, you were just there, is the, thank you. The deletion of the decks that we had on the first floor over the garages previously. Other than that, the roofs are generally unchanged. Plate heights are unchanged. Slope is unchanged on the second floor. Okay, we did delete some interior vaults, but that was the most significant change to the roof that didn't affected in no way the elevations. Okay, thank you. A6.0, the exterior elevations, starting with the north elevation. The north elevation is the front elevation that faces the shared driveway. We've widened the gabled entries, and that was in response to a request from your board to work on the proportions. If we can zoom in on view 2, please. So you can see at the two front doors in the middle of the building, there is now more space provided for the door in the window, and I would argue it does feel a little less cramped, and I hope you'll feel that addressed your concern. You can also see here where we deleted the front deck on the second floor. That was the far left and the far right of that front elevation. We've also brought back the mullions on the windows per your board's request. And we've worked to keep their proportions as consistent as possible. There were some minor window shifts and replacements. I think most notably on the far left and the far right second floor where we had the decks previously. Thank you. And looking at now at the south elevation, again, there were some minor door and window revisions. Then that south elevation is at the bottom facing the courtyard where we relocated the entries and some of the windows on the first and then windows on the second floor as well. Most notably on this elevation, we've deleted the cantilever that we had. On the left and the right, the second floor cantilevered 12 or maybe 16 inches over previously. That's been deleted to simplify the framing. Again, then in this view, you can see the walls now stack at the middle of the courtyard. And we're utilizing the same roof line that we had, or a roof line in the same location to help break up that elevation itself. Thank you. Can we look at A6.1, the side and courtyard elevations? In these elevations, the elevations on the right, 1 and 2, really the only significant change is the deletion of the second floor decks that we had previously. Thank you. Now looking at the courtyard elevations, the 2 on the left there, 3 and 4, you can see there's simply been a deletion of cantilever. So those walls are simplified, just vertical. Thank you. Lastly, A9.3, the details, please. We'll be coming back to your board with sort of more fully developed details, but one of the things that was asked of us was to develop a concept for the trash enclosure. And so if we can zoom in on 10 and 11 there, please. We are proposing to keep it simple. It's stuccoed to match the buildings with quite a simple wood gates. Other than that, there's no significant change to the details. We're maintaining the recessed windows that your board required. And we'll come back with an updated landscape when we return next. Looking forward to the input from your board. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. If staff could put the minutes up really quickly, we can take a quick read, remind ourselves. Okay, thank you. Okay, if we have our board members back up. We can go to, we need to open public comment first before we get into questions. So if anybody in the public would like to address the board regarding this project, you can follow the instructions on screen and that will notify staff you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, I don't see that anybody has joined the webinar to make any public comment on this item. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence?
Christina and board members, no written correspondence was received for this item. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment and go to questions from the board. Would anyone like to start? No questions? It's a first. I have a question. On the trash enclosure, can you remind us where was the previous configuration and what has changed about it?
Sure, Maura, there's been no change to the configuration. If we can, staff, if you'll zoom in on plan west there near the driveway entry, there's not been a change to the configuration. We did study the location of the trash enclosure. We teamed with the landscape architects to revisit the location of the trash enclosure, and we all determined we were not able to find a better location than this, and this location has the advantage that we are able to provide, some landscape screening of the enclosure itself from the street. We are able to provide to sort of hide the bike enclosures behind the trash enclosure as well. So that's why we're retaining the originally proposed location. What we did not have before were any proposed elevations or sort of a system for constructing it. And there's a question from your board that we look into that.
Okay, thank you. Who had questions?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
There's no intentions of improving or refurbishing the front unit, exterior paint or trim or anything?
Thank you for that question, Board Member 6. At this time, there is no plan to refurbish or redesign that front unit, although certainly I would love to be involved in doing that. At this time, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No one else? Okay. Well, if that is it, then let's go to comments, please. Would anyone like to start? Mr. Olsen, go ahead.
Yes, my comments are all positive. I appreciate the applicant's attention to our conditions, and I think it's ready to go to a next step.
Mr. Chair Moore?
Yes.
I concur. I think it's a handsome design, appropriate for this level of economic housing. I do have several comments on the trash enclosure. I think that it's odd that the bike lockers, I would assume, well, that's a question of the applicant. I assume that those are store-bought metal boxes.
Board Member 6, that is correct. They are. And in fact, there's a spec included on the details sheet.
All right.
If you'd
So
like to take a closer look.
It's a shame that can't be rearranged somewhere, the relocated somewhere else, but I understand the site constraints. I would think at least, so it's awkward to smash these zero tolerance, smash these store-bought things between two built walls. But that being at least, I would think that you could do a built wall in back of the you don't access them from both sides, correct? Or do you?
You're correct, Board Member 6, you do not.
Okay, so there could be a built wall, the height of the trash enclosure walls to cover the back ends of these pre-manufactured on the street, and I think that if we go to the elevations of the trash enclosure, it seems that desires a bit of more, calls for a bit more thought. I think that can we go there? That the intermediate columns between the doors probably should live better with simply wood. And I would think that it wouldn't have to enclose or roof the thing, but it would seem that a wood header across the door units and columns in between would be good. The surrounding stucco walls to receive the ends of that header, so you would get a top point for these wood doors so they don't warp, and a 3-point or 2-point what do you call it, a latch. So I think there's that could be improved slightly, but other than that, I think it's going in the right direction, and it's a good project.
All right. Anyone else?
Chair Moore, I would just add that I'm also supportive of the changes and appreciate the applicant's attention to the previous comments.
Okay, thank you. For this question for staff, is a motion required at this point?
Thank you, Chair Moore. Yes, this does require a motion by the board. For an in progress, it won't be an appealable motion, but it would be it would just be a motion that would be voted on.
Okay, so a continuance. Okay, great. So I will make a motion for an indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments: that the board appreciates the applicant's attention to detail and resolving our concerns regarding the exterior of the 4-unit apartment building at the rear of the parcel, and that the majority of the board feels like the project could return for final approval at this time. The board would like further development of the materials at the trash enclosure. The applicant should consider an all wood construction and potentially a wood header to further enhance the design, and that the back of the bike lockers be screened with a wall that is similar in materiality or the same material as the trash enclosure.
I'll second that.
Okay.
It's a further discussion.
Sure.
Chair Moore, I think we should recognize in our last item that the landscaping is not part of this review at this progress review.
Yes, yes. So we can add that the applicant shall provide a final landscape design that fully screens the trash enclosure and provides screening at all exterior mechanical or electrical equipment locations.
And is adequate throughout the site.
And yes, and encompasses, and the design, landscape design shall encompass the entire site.
I'll approve that.
Okay, any other discussion? Oh, okay, let's take our vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Chair Moore.
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member New,
Yes.
Board Member Olsen,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I believe we can adjourn our meeting for the day. Thank you very much, everyone.